Welcome back to Clown World Network. I'm your host, Brian Morris, where we bring the circus to your everyday devices Monday through Friday, right here at clownworldnetwork.com. Remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe as we continue to rock the airwaves with just the greatest, we'll call it not so great news, but we have a good time, and that's all that matters. This has been a great day today. It's a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We've been monitoring all of the storms that are going across the country. We do hope that everybody is staying safe, staying warm, and finding shelter from some of these unbelievably cold temperatures. Today was a very somber day. As many of you know, Rush Limbaugh is one of the most controversial, bombastic, boisterous, and controversial people on the air today. He has had the irked all kinds of liberals for far more than 40 years and has a great following, always providing as much truth as he can provide. After announcing he was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer in 2020, Limbaugh was actually awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by then-President Donald Trump at the State of the Union address on February 4th.
The millions of people a day that you speak to and that you inspire, and all of the incredible work that you have done for charity. I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
You know, one thing can be said about Rush is he was a very emotional man, and you could see the emotions that were there, and he let it out on the table every single time he was on the air. He made his opinions known, but he laid out his heart and his soul, and he laid out his beliefs for people. Today we not only mourn the passing of a media icon, but the passing of a legend. A man who you loved, you hated, you loved to hate, or hated to love. At age 70, Rush Limbaugh has died. In a very touching and somber tribute, his death was announced today on his show by wife Catherine. If you haven't had a chance to catch it, we'll catch you up right now.
Rush will forever be the greatest of all time. Rush was an extraordinary man, a gentle giant, brilliant, quick-witted, genuinely kind, extremely generous, passionate, courageous, and the hardest working person I know. Despite being one of the most recognized, powerful people in the world, Rush never let the success change his core or beliefs.
Freedom is killed off by people claiming that the greater good or the general will or the betterment of the community requires speech patrol.
I think what's always impressed me about Rush Limbaugh is he had some disabilities. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how deaf he really was. And he's in an industry that requires you to understand auditory response. He was a definite, opinionated, very bullified type of speaker, and he definitely upset and ruffled a lot of feathers. But he always gave support, and he was one of the first media personalities to come out in support of Donald Trump during his presidential bid in 2016. And Donald Tribute repaid that support in an unbelievable tribute, or kind of more of a mourning, during a Fox News interview today. He actually talked about his basically stating, and this was like one of the best phrases, is there aren't too many legends, but he is a legend.
But he was a fantastic man, a fantastic talent, and people, whether they loved him or not, they respected him. They really did. He became a friend of mine. You know, I didn't know Rush at all. I had essentially never met Rush. And then when we came down the escalator, he liked my rather controversial speech. I made that speech that was a little bit on the controversial side, and he loved it. And he was, without ever having met him or talked to him or, you know, had lunch with him or asked him, he was with me right from the beginning. And he liked what I said, and he agreed with what I said, and he was just a great gentleman.
I think the worst part of this is that the conservatives have lost a very loud voice. And in a time when we are seeing some of the most oppressing censorship and attacks on our free speech, we needed a giant in a voice like Rush Limbaugh's. So there's no doubt in my mind that there will be a void that somebody will have to step up and fill. But our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Rush Limbaugh, obviously his wife, and to all the millions and millions of listeners that have been a fan for many years, myself included. While we may not have always agreed with everything he said, we couldn't help but listen in the way he said it. I'll tell you one thing, though. If he had been around, you know, one of the things that I loved about Rush Limbaugh is he had no problem calling out political leaders. Politicians in general were definitely targets of his attacks on a regular basis because he had no problem pointing out their faults, and that's the reality. Now, here's a story that would have received Rush Limbaugh's attention for sure. In the ongoing slew of Joe Biden political gaffes, we are offered the opportunity day in and day out just to continue to roll with this. CNN hosted a town hall last night in which Joe Biden basically came out and said, Black Americans and Hispanics aren't smart enough to figure out how to schedule a vaccine online. You got to hear this for yourself.
The other portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination at the Walgreens.
I think any normal politician would have referred to it as economically depressed areas. It's not specific or isolated to any race. You have any type of economically depressed areas where they don't have as much access to internet, computers, smartphones, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, they might have a difficulty understanding it. But Joe Biden is no stranger and has never made it really not known how he feels in all the things he said over the political history that the media has continued to ignore. And despite how many times we point these things out, the media continues to bless this man with ongoing passes. It's like the eternal get-out-of-jail-free card for him and the media. I don't understand it, and I don't agree with it. You know, they say controversy builds news, right? They learned that with President Trump. This would be the opportunity for them to destroy this man, but they continue to pass and pass and pass on it, and all of his staff. It's just like Kayleigh McEnany, Trump's White House press secretary. She would give her briefings every day, and they would light her up with it. Joe Biden's press secretary gets questions in advance and very friendly. The media continues to give him a pass on even the things like this, where his true intentions and his true beliefs actually come out intentionally or unintentionally, because he just doesn't have any worries about what he says, how he says it, because it'll just be covered up, buried, or ignored. And they all just kind of sum it up. Oh, that's just Joe, right? How many times have you heard that? But in other words, in other news, while we're talking about people in political power. With the ongoing push for forced vaccinations, we have learned that Dr. Anthony Fauci is the highest, let me say this word again, highest paid federal employee in the United States. Are you getting this? The highest paid federal employee in the U.S. of A. Yep, it's true. He actually makes more money than the President of the United States. And also, just this week, he was awarded, it's called the Dan David Prize for Science, for defending science, a Dan David Prize for defending science, because science needs defending. I mean, let's just have a look at Dr. Fauci's latest antics.
Dr. Fauci, I'd like to start off by thanking you for bringing science back to the forefront.
I appreciate that.
What's the latest data on what someone with autoimmune issues can do to avoid infection?
We've gathered data and established new precautions. As always, by following the science. Wheel! Behold the wheel of science! If you want to avoid the coronavirus, you have to rip off your eyebrows.
Like shave my eyebrows?
Rip off your eyebrows! No! It's very specific.
What about for someone with a gluten deficiency, like me?
Science says, fight a bear.
How often should we expect updates as data is gathered?
Here's the latest update. Fart levitation! Levitation, that's physically impossible, even while farting. You deny science? Dr. Fauci, these are all well and good for the individual, but what's something that everyone collectively can do? Let's get the latest science on that. Jump into a volcano! Bye-bye!
Thank you to all for continuing to help flatten the curve and for following the latest guidelines and restrictions that I wouldn't do if you paid me.
We have to thank Babylon Bee for putting that out there, because I swear every time Fauci would go on stage, I felt like he was spinning a wheel. It's so funny that when we found that video, we actually was something we used to talk about. I literally wondered before he went on stage or got in front of a camera if he spun a wheel. It's like the final words of that video, I'm setting, or people are following guidelines that I wouldn't do if you paid me. It's like the perfect setup for reality. It seems to be a reoccurring theme with our government officials, though. I mean, you think about Newsom having his gathering after he said, hey, don't gather, or Nancy Pelosi getting her hair blown when she said, don't get your hair blown, you have to do it outside, or, you know, Cuomo going through all his number of things, too. I mean, these ongoing Democratic leaders, what's good for me is not good for thee. And here's Dr. Fauci that continues to give us misguided directions. He has flip-flopped more times than a fish out of water. And let's just go back to the mask thing. You need to wear a mask. Well, masks don't really help. Well, maybe we should double mask. If you double mask, then maybe you'll have this. And masks are going to help bring it under control. I am so tired of listening to this guy. And here's what gets me even more. He is the highest paid person, not just in his organization or his level of government. He is the highest paid person in the U.S. as a federal employee. Are you understanding this? This guy is making tons of money to get it wrong. You know, they don't pay weathermen that much, and weathermen can get it wrong pretty much 50% of the time and still have a job. But Dr. Fauci, he would give Donald Trump information, and Donald Trump would go out into a press conference and provide the information that Dr. Fauci gave him, and Dr. Fauci would never come to his aid when the media continued to make it on Donald Trump that it's his fault that 300,000 people died. If you remember correctly, Donald Trump said we need to stop all flights coming into America from China. Dr. Fauci said, no, I don't think that's really a big deal. But do you think he defended the president? And the answer to that question is no. And I've had enough of Dr. Fauci. I don't like listening to him talk. He's a small man in stature, and he's a small man in the way he carries himself and how he defended our President Trump. And for that, Dr. Fauci, you have earned the coveted Clown of the Day. You know, we've always have a chance to really kind of point out some really fun things in the world, and most of you may not know that this is the Happy Gilmore 25th anniversary week. Now, it's kind of brought this out brought this to my awareness because I really wasn't thinking about it. I try not to think about things that date me or like really tell me how old I am. But rounding out our show this evening, we have a Florida man who was out golfing with some friends, and a gator actually grabbed the golf ball off the greens. And I assume that the gator thought it was an egg or something because it kind of looks like that. But it's kind of funny because it kind of reminds you of something, doesn't it?
That son of a bitch! Give me my ball! Give it here! Cough it up, you dirty bastard! I swear to God, I'll rip it out of you! Give me the ball, alligator. Ah!
It's always fun when fiction resembles reality or reality resembles fiction. In this case, though, I think that, you know, it's kind of an awareness that, hey, here we are 25 years later. Yes, 25 years. Look how young Adam Sandler looked in that. But Adam Sandler wasn't going to just like let this week go by without taking to the course and letting us know that he still got it.
It's been 25 years since I've done this. Let's see what happens. I'm scared. Shooter McGavin, this is for you. And I'm not lying to you, that is smashed. Smashed. And that went pretty well. You dead, Shooter. Ha 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 ha.
I love Adam Sandler. No matter how old he looks, he still hasn't lost that boyish charm. But I'll tell you, have you ever tried to run up to a golf ball and actually hit it? It takes a little bit of skill to do that, and I have to believe that Adam's had a little practice on the golf course. But fortunately for us, Shooter McGavin wasn't going to lay down and just let Adam have all of his trash talking. He actually responded.
Nice drive, Gilmore. 25 years, huh? Let's see if it's Shooter's tour. Check it out. Oh, yeah. It's all about the short game. Drive for show, putt for the dough. Money. Shooter. Still got it. Well, thank you to all the fans, and thank you to you, Adam Sandler. And why don't you just meet me at the 9th green at 9, Gilmore?
Unfortunately, we didn't see our boys in Florida wrestle that little tiny alligator, so we don't know the outcome of that ball theft. I have to assume that it just ended up in the water. But I'm hoping that we are going to see a rematch with a Happy Gilmore 2. Who knows? It may happen. It may not happen. But it is fun that you got some actors that had like that friendly on-screen rivalry, able to actually have fun with what they've done 25 years ago. And everybody that was around remembers that rivalry, and they just had a good time with it. I mean, that was one of the best and greatest, worst movies ever. I'm kind of became like iconic because of it. I'm hoping for a Happy Gilmore 2, although I have to believe that both of the actors will be wearing a lot of makeup because they are looking old, and I don't look old at all. Not at all. Not at all. Well, that just about wraps us up this evening. We thank you for joining us. We really do send our condolences out to the Limbaugh family and to all the millions of listeners and fans that have been around. We have to continue to have a voice. We have to continue to find leaders to lead the voice, and we have to continue to have our voice heard. and that's one thing that we can take from Rush Limbaugh is that you need to have your voice heard, that nobody can take that away from you. On that note, we thank you for joining us. Again, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share. We need all of the comments and positive outlooks that we can get. If you continue to invite at least one friend to our page, we'll soon have enough of a following to really reach the masses. And hopefully you're having a good time with the show, because I know we are. On that note, be good to each other. Know that I love you, and we'll talk to you again real soon.